And if there is another site that would work, then it's going to be up to the city to find that and present it. Verizon has done their work of trying to identify the best site, but they are not going to they are open to considering other sites if there is one that works. So anyway, keep that back in mind, but also keep in mind formally at some point in time, the planning board makes a decision based upon the criteria that I shared with you a couple of examples. In terms of the process, we have already had within this application a pre-application meeting. Some of you attended that meeting. They're all public and advertised for. Submitted, which starts the clock on things that we have to do, decisions that we have to make. And those are all in the ordinance, and we have to follow the ordinance as we can. The applicant is willing to work with us on some of the deadlines in order to facilitate as much community involvement as possible. They've been working with us on that. But at the end of the day, the next step after we have the meeting tonight is we have to schedule a decision on whether or not the application is complete. The more information we need. And within 30 days of making that decision, we have to have a public hearing. Be a formal public hearing, maybe here, depending upon the interest, or the town hall. And within 30 days of that public hearing, we have to decide. The clock's ticking, but as I say, if there's interest or there's kind of a critical mass of energy that is interested in another location and one that would work, the applicant has indicated to us that they're interested in working on that one. They're not trying to jam anything in. We're not trying to jam anything in, but it's only going to work if there's enough public interest, grassroots interest in doing something other than the force. And keep in mind, each application is site specific. So if there's another site, it's all over the application. Okay. All right, so I've had enough to say. Welcome. What I'd like to do, as I said on the agenda, is start with Bonnie. She's been very patient and said what she wanted to say. So Bonnie, we'll start with you, then we'll hear from Verizon, and then the other parties, the town panel, if they want to make a presentation, we obviously will get that. I'll be moderating things. I'll be kind of watching the clock a little bit, make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. Yeah, thank you very much for being here. Let's go ahead and get started. Bonnie, you're welcome to come up here and the microphone if you like to.
Sorry. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I have a vocal injury, so it's a little hard for me to get out of my face a little easier for me, so I appreciate the accommodation. My name is Bonnie Hamilton. I live at 20 Post Office Road, right next to the property we're talking about tonight. We provide the right of way to this property as previously stated. My family will be impacted by the construction of this tower, excuse me, during and after. We're extremely concerned about the quality of life being detrimentally affected by the town's decision to possibly place this 5G tower adjacent to and within mere feet of our property. Where the platform of the tower is proposed to be built and where our 1 acre lot begins is just a few feet away. So I really appreciate this opportunity to discuss our concerns. Thank you. We're both native New Englanders, and we knew Maine to be a very, very special place. We have visited here often and have roots here. My paternal grandfather was born and raised in Poland Springs. And when we first moved to southern Maine from Manhattan 23 years ago, we did so to enjoy peace and quiet and beauty and nature, to slow our pace a little bit. And eventually when we both fully retired, to integrate ourselves into a small local community like Westport Island. We moved here in December of 2021. We didn't have an nest egg, but we did have energy and willpower to create a space for ourselves here on the island. We took, if not a derelict property, certainly one down on its luck. You may recall it had a tree that we grew it. We have since then made it into having a driveway and plants and trees and garden and art and a court to the deck and sheds. And a place that we could be proud of. We put a mural on the house. It's been dubbed the tree house by neighbors. And we've received incredible compliments from all of you who are our direct neighbors on how much we've changed the place. How much change we brought to. We used our savings, our social security, and a ton of grit. We dug in not only to the neighborhood, but into the greater community. I volunteered for 2 committees. As a director of Neighbor to Neighbor, which was developed to replace Helping Hands. You may remember Helping Hands, where Helping Hands once existed. And as a gardener for the Horticulture Art and Property Maintenance Committee. We maintained the fairy garden, fairy candy gardens, and the gardens around the town offices. Forgive them now, we've had it ready, they look terrible. We can't manufacture the water, unfortunately. We also plant holes in the roadways throughout the island in partnership with WCA. I deliver pantry items as a substitute to people on Westport Island. We dug in, like I said. We became part of the community, and we've been giving back to the community. But now it feels like you're voting us off the island. It feels like you're kicking us overboard. And let me tell you something, it does not feel good. It feels really bad, like we're fighting for our lives here. We can't afford, our property right now is what we understand can lose up to 30% of its value because power is placed adjacent to it. We cannot afford to lose 30% of our property value. Nor do we want to live in the base of a 5G tower with its obstructed views, its environmentally intact, the noisy cooling fans and electrical transformers, mere feet from where we rest our heads. I have health concerns about this noise level and other concerns about dealing with health effects. We're assuming there are no town ordinances for 5G towers are concerned, and you answered that at the beginning of this meeting. So we're beginning this. Oh, yes. And what are the noise ordinances? How much blasting will be done? How much heavy equipment will be taken? And how many trees will be removed from Mr. Filbert's property to make space for the platform of the tower? And how many will be earmarked from ours? As Mr. Philbrook has cut trees from around the right of way on the property in the past without conferring with us, we certainly hope all communication going forward will be thorough and respectful. That is, of course, whether the project is fully approved for 24 Post Office Road or not. Here comes the or not part. We beg the town to fully consider a more adequate place for the 5G tower that does not impact dozens or so homes within its current range on Post Office and neighborhoods. And elects instead to place it on town property that will not only provide the complete 5G coverage required and needed on behind, but may benefit the town in other ways. Possibly even a state-of-the-art fire station. Courtesy of town owners. We know placement of 5G tower in Westport Island is a fait accompli. Please let's be very thoughtful and thorough about where this might be and what Westport Island residents might gain from it beyond a decent signal. Thank you very much. I guess I think I want to be reading. This is actually a summary of a brief, a research brief that addresses loss of property value as well as health concerns. The first page is a summary, behind it is the brief itself. We can make that brief available to you electronically for anybody who wants to see it or read.
That'd be great.
That's your copy.
We'll post it to the website, and I should have mentioned to everyone, we have a page on the town website, is that correct?
Yeah.
Specifically designated for this issue, so anything that comes across our desk, and particularly items like this will be posted there. Bonnie, before you leave, the podium, let me just ask the group, does anyone have any questions for Bonnie? Seeing one in the back, Danny, and you may need your microphone on the back.
Okay, has the applicant provided any proof of the easement to you, or covenant? Okay,
Go on, cycle here.
I asked if the applicant has provided Hamilton's any proof of the easement, deed or covenant within the application.
All right, any other, Mariana?
I was just wondering, Bonnie, is this the same street that you had in Boston? This is one that I gave shortly previous. It seemed a little bit longer, so I want to make sure that we have. It's exactly the same. Yeah, the only change, I updated it to 30% up to 30% because I couldn't find the verification of 35%.
Gentlemen, Eddie? You'll need to speak up so we can all hear
How do you
you.
do this all when you know of any other sites that are possible or that would be appropriate or being considered or anyone?
That's a question for the planning board and yeah, I don't personally know.
So folks didn't hear, the question was, whether or not, the Hamiltons had any other ideas on locations. And the response was, she's looking to the town or the board. Right. All right, anyone else? So,
I have a question for Bonnie, Mike, has your property been seen, or have you seen any surveyors around the property? No, so there's no evidence of any markings or anything? Okay.
all right, any other questions for Bonnie? Bonnie, thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
I hope you appreciate there's a bigger audience here than what's the other audience, so. All right, very good. Mr. Bergdorf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everybody hear me? I know we got fans who might need to use the microphone. Pretty good? Okay. Thank you again for the record, Robert Bergdorf from the law firm Nixon Peabody here tonight on behalf of Verizon Wireless. I just want to introduce a few other folks for the record to the extent they may be able to answer questions relative to their expertise. Brett McGowan is principal and really the project manager with Department of Power. Think of him as essentially the subcontractor that builds and maintains pole for Verizon Wireless. Avilio Solongo, he's the RF engineer. Now, RF standing for radio frequency, and we use RF quite a bit tonight. He's the RF engineer who's responsible for designing this facility, making sure it works and does what it's supposed to do from a radio frequency perspective. And Sam Tweedout is our site acquisition expert. Once he gets guidance from the RF engineer with search area, we're going to talk about that in a minute. He's responsible for going out and trying to find the best site from a land use standpoint that also works buildable. We have a willing landowner, but mostly so that it works from an RF standpoint. As everyone knows, this is an application for 130-foot monopole in order to cure coverage deficiencies in the geographic area that we call the Westport Sun. We'll see where that is in just a minute. And the reason for that is in order to provide adequate, reliable wireless communications for emergency services, businesses, and individuals in the Westport Sun, all pursuant to Verizon Wireless's FCC license, which it's required to do in its licensed areas. It must get proper service in all of its licensed areas where it could actually lose its license. It's required to. But I'd like to cover 4 areas tonight. Each of the 4 will be pretty quick, less than 20 minutes total. and just to get all the relevant facts out on the table, the first thing that I want to talk about is when the basic facts of how cellular technology works. We cannot have a meaningful discussion about this project and alternatives unless we understand that. I'll take a couple minutes. The second thing I want to talk about is going to be the particular coverage problems we're trying to solve with this cell site. And then the search area and the limitations and challenges and the opportunities and alternatives. The third area is to look precisely at what a cell site entails, right? So what's here or elsewhere to monopole, like what's at the site. So there are no cooling fans, things like that. We'll talk about the actual site itself. And the fourth is just a few miscellaneous items that have come up. So the first is, again, cellular technology. And in order for your cellular network to work, you have to have a series of interlocking cells. That's why it's called honeycomb cells. That's why it's called cellular. Now, each cell and the geographic area would be each one of these. And then in the center of each cell, there's a cell site. Basically, that's antenna array at a particular height, a proper height, so that it covers that cell without unduly interfering with a neighboring cell, because you're reusing the frequencies, or being so far away from the neighboring cell that it gaps. If it's too high, you're going to have too much coverage, and it's going to interfere. If it's too low, it's going to be too far away, it's going to gap. You move too far one direction, will interfere with the cell in that direction, and gap in the one in the other direction. So it's the puzzle pieces. And as a user moves seamlessly from cell to cell, it hands off. It says user A is coming to you next cell. Hands off, user that reader knows. And that's how a cellular system works. The best example an RF engineer gave me once is think of a flashlight. Turn a flashlight upside down, got a beam. As you raise that beam gets bigger. As you lower that flashlight, that beam gets footprint gets smaller. As you move it, of course, that footprint moves around and that's it. It's kind of that flashlight, the right light, not too high, not too low, and basically in the center, so it comes. Now, this is oversimplified. It is more complicated than that. Although I've seen some out west where it's perfectly flat, it actually resembles that. But one of the problems here, or challenges, is what makes this area so beautiful is a real challenge for the RF engineer. Because snow on leaves on trees can impede the signal. The dense forest we have here impedes the signal. And then one of the biggest ones is topography. So we've got some beautiful hills here, but it makes it really tough. So it starts to warp that. But that's really that concept. That is what we're at. Yeah, more complicated than that. But in addition, there has to be a return path. You don't have that with radio television, right? The broadcast only blast that all over. Not trying to worry about neighboring cells. Very high power. We can blast that all over. I get what's receiving. Here, the RF engineer also has to worry about the return path. That phone has to be able to see and talk to the tower. That phone is incredibly weak signal. So they've got to worry about the return path as well. So all this adds up to the fact that there's very limited flexibility as to where this can be placed and still work within the network and have a functioning cellular network. Let's go to the let's stay here for a second. Coverage objectives. What we're trying to cover in this cell, and we can go into greater detail, but I'll just hit the highlights. Obviously, existing coverage for West Portland, taking along Route 144, which is the main route, East Shore Road, West Shore Road, Post Office Road, and of course all the surrounding residences. The idea is to get good coverage in the entire area. It gets really tough. You've got some knolls, you've got some valleys. That topography makes it a lot tougher, but that's the goal, is to get first and foremost primary coverage to West Point. Then it's also to hand off to neighboring cells. We got Edgecombe south to the northeast, we got Booth Bay north site to the east, Booth Bay Harbor south more to the east and southeast, and Aerostate to the southwest. So it's all got to work like we showed a minute ago with that honeycomb network. What you're seeing here is For instance. This, all the red is coming off of one tower. The blue is coming off the another, yellow another. It is scattered because of photography. Again, it makes it a lot tougher, as opposed to honeycombing and trying to, maintain. So we've got a lot of what we call, errant coverage that actually isn't good. You want to really, in an ideal world, you have nice tight cells. Let's go to the active, so. This is the exact same, you must see the exact same map, only now it's got the Westport turned on. So you see, we're getting really good coverage where we needed it throughout the whole Westport Island. It's also jumping over and covering some areas here, which is pretty typical. You can also see this purple. This purple is jumping over from another side. So sometimes when you get shoreline, you've got usually so the land comes down where the shore is. So the tower here may shoot over this, and so you'll interlock and try to get some puzzle piece connect with the shore on the other side and vice versa. So again, a very challenging site. But with this site in place, good solid coverage, all the coverage objectives, and every place that we need to head in. Now, in order to make this coverage, in order to get these coverage objectives solved, we talked about how if you've got a cell, you need to have it basically in the middle of the cell, the cell site if you're in the middle of the cell. So let's go to the search area video. So this is the search area, and it starts. We started with this room. So the RF engineers build it on their system, and we pushed them to get as wide a search area as they can. Because we wanted to be as inclusive as possible to find the best site. And from that, the site acquisition consultant goes out and starts looking for the right site. Ideally, they find an existing tower we can co-locate, existing tower, existing water tank, church steeple. We've got church steeples. It's easy in big cities, right? Got plenty of buildings. Cells are smaller. Get out here, it's a lot more challenging. There were no co-location options. The 295 tower we're right next to is structurally incapable. When we whip that text, the holes for its purposes not. The second thing the site acquisition consultant does, they look for if they can go next to an existing tower. So we found here. That's usually ideal. You've already got one tower, and that's good to have them together. And this will be 130 feet again in a minute. It's not as smaller, it's not lit, it's not striped. Doing his job, the site acquisition consultant went out and found about 10 different properties. Most are not interested in renting. A couple other ones we looked at, also may or may not have worked with a taller height. So with all that information, go back to facing the side. And the topography drops off pretty quickly on each side of the coast, and primary end in the middle. So this is the prime area. This is where we're going to get the best results. When I say best results, as we start to come off of that. I'm not saying that anything else in here might not work with the mic, but as you come off of it, say in this area here, it's likely to be over 200 feet. We press the RF engineers to be under 200 feet. The reason for that is once you're over 200 feet, it has to be striped and lit for FAA regulations. So we don't want strobes, we don't want red and white paint. So we press them hard. I always get away with it. We press them very hard. Always be testing everything at 200 or less. And said that, if we come to a community and if this community said, look, this is the perfect site for us. We don't care if it's 300 feet lit and strobe. We don't care. You've heard me say that before. And I'll say it again, we don't care where we are. As long as it works from our standpoint. Not a reasonable cost and reasonable delay, and it's law. And obviously if you have an available landlord, it's gotta be get strong. Other challenges with this. We have wetlands and aquifers, and that's basically the blue. And so there's a problem going in those areas. The orange is limited development districts. So we have to stay out there. And those are the challenges, and you can see what's left. There's not a whole lot of parcels left. If we stay out of wetlands, we stay out of the trust areas. I don't tell you, I'm 3 foot tower, we'll look at it, but I'm assuming this is really gonna be the area. Where this tower goes. So this is not an easy search area. These are significant challenges, they're not small. And it's a problem. Right, let's go to the third topic I want to cover is what the facility itself looks like. So a lot of people envision a lot of things. This is to scale, so this is the height of the tower compared to the 295-foot tower. You can see where, basically if you're looking at this, you're looking at this, that's the idea is to consolidate services. That's the Adirondack Park phrase, to consolidate the services and keep them together. But what's actually at the site, it would be 130-foot monopole. It would be antenna. There's conduit that runs inside the pole. I think people have all seen this. It's just a gray, dull gray monopole. It's like you see in a parking lot, right? With lights. Only it's bigger and it's antenna. The same idea. So it's a gray monopole.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Is the middle of the telephone pole?
No, this is the same as this. This is just showing it to scale. And then I want people to see it better. So this is blown up.
Oh, to scale to.
Yeah, scale against the 200-foot.
Something you search actively. We can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here, let me-
Talk fast.
Okay. If you have any comments, you should direct them to me, and we'll iron out any issues. No, that's a good comment. Want to know that? Yeah, address, I can take care of something like that. And you all are being very patient and holding your questions until he's finished, so.
Is that better? Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Amy, hear anything you said?
Little bit.
At the base of the tower, there's just a chain link fence and an equipment shelter. Let's go to the from above, so we can see what's in the compound area. So that's from above. You're looking at the monopole from the top, looking straight down. And there's a generator and an equipment shelter. And that's all there is to it, kind of rather bad. So I think there's a mention of taking out a lot of trees. It's a pretty small pad.
Sorry.
That this sits on, and there's not much to it. Beyond that, I'm gonna talk about noise for a minute because Ms. Hannigan, I think was. Is that right, Hannigan?
Also.
Okay. It mentioned, cooling fans and so forth. There's no noise in the facility. There is a generator. And the generator, same as you have at any other, residential house. It's same thing you find there. And it would be a backup generator for emergencies. And it would only operate in the event of power outage, in which case, I'm sorry, can you hear?
30 days a year.
In which case, the need for emergency services is important. Now, we've done a noise study, it's not done yet, with the noise study, it will show the property lines, that the generator was not going to create a noise issue for the neighbors, but that's when we'll supply that afterwards, we commission that's underway. Those are the first three issues. The miscellaneous issues, I want to talk about emergency services. We were asked at the very first meeting how this helps emergency services, and of course, no legal requirement that help emergency services would be that there would be an express need for it, but it does indeed assist emergency services here. Approximately 8% of 911 calls are made using cell phones, and 911 calls routinely fail to get through in that area that you saw. And the reasons we saw.
first here.
Additionally, following conversations with the fire chief. Chief told us that they would like to rely on cellular as backup secondary, and you can't do that because they are unable to get good service, adequate service in the areas that we talked about. Additionally, the fire chief mentioned that their own radio transmission, their own tubing, has issues in the part of the island where we would be covering, and he would really like to get a repeater. And so he said that this tower would solve, he put us in touch with Jason, I guess who's in charge of their radio equipment, who was taking a look at this and said this would be ideal for a repeater. Oh, there you are, sorry. How could I miss it, right? That this would be ideal for a repeater. And we have already had discussions, and we would make that, Verizon would make that space available on the tower at no charge. We would be there. So that's emergency services. I just want to very quickly, I think I came in well under 20 minutes. Just mention, because the only feedback we got so far really from Ms. Hampton, where she's concerned about her peace and quiet and enjoying nature, this will have no effect on that. Will have no effect on peace and quiet, have no effect on enjoying nature. In fact, far less impact than if somebody builds a single family home next to you. Now, the issue that we most often hear is that we don't want to see it. Aesthetics. Aesthetics is really the only concern this here. If we can build it 6 feet high and surround with arborvitae, we wouldn't have any use. Because these things, these facilities, they are, in this case, it's unlit, doesn't generate noise, doesn't generate traffic, it's on a heavily wooded site, it doesn't increase population density, doesn't increase school and resources, doesn't vibrate, doesn't create dust, it's inert. I mean, we've seen sometimes, and that's not the case here. I was surprised when I drove the site. This is a well-hidden site. So you take aesthetics out of the equation. What's left? There is no impact. There is no adverse impact. The only impacts are positive ones, getting a tax base, but more importantly, providing modern, reliable system of emergency communications to the community. So it does help if there are concerns to hear really specifically what those concerns are. Beyond, we just don't like it or it's different. I think I'll stop there and then just react to board questions. If there's questions, go ahead, noise, talk about the small footprint in terms of trees. Oh, just there's a question on value. Again, we would submit, there's no basis for that. We submitted on July 15th some additional materials to the town, mentioned that. There are no credible studies showing that it has an adverse effect, especially when you can't see it. And in fact, it has an overall positive impact because people are looking for good wireless communications, especially when people work from home. We're finding no adverse impact in terms of property values, and even if there were, it wouldn't in and of itself be a basis for a denial. And I think the last one I just want to get, I think there was a question about health, but I'll leave that alone unless the board asks that question.
All right, thank you very much. If you could remain at the podium, I think
Sure.
there'll probably be some questions. So this would be the time for questions. Again, if you withhold any comments until after we get all the information exchanged. Let me go ahead.
Hi, I'm Debbie Hayata. I've been on board for 4 years. I'm confusing myself on this application because I'm 1,000 feet within the proposed tower. I broke the board because as we had a board meeting last month, we decided to save questions for this meeting. I supplied my questions ahead of time because they're monthly. But as I wrote the board, I have all confidence in them to study this application from the site plan ordinance review aspect. And in every board member to apply those criteria. The questions that I prepared are in support of those criteria, but are not supported by current application. So, what I asked Bonnie before was, did the applicant supply you proof that they did indeed have access to the right of way? Mr. Wardor, do you have legal access to the right of way, do you supply that to her?
If the board asks us to supply, we supply. We don't typically go and provide title reports. We have no problem doing it if there's a question with respect to that.
For a little more background, people who don't live right in our neck of the woods, Bonnie and Mike lived in approximately 1 acre parcel. And the abutter that they're proposing is 1 acre, so it's very tight. What they didn't show you up there, and if you do have it, can you bring it up?
Wait a minute,
That is a part of the application.
I mean, I don't mean to interrupt, but we just need questions right now, okay?
Oh, okay.
I mean, you're gonna have, in fact, I want you all and your families to be able to make a presentation, and it may be that that's a good time to make that. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
however you all want to do it, but just questions for them, so you get information rather than take.
All right, well, actually, easement expressive, authorized construction equipment, drainage, concrete trucks, utility installation, and future maintenance.
Is there a question?
Yes,
Is
that was the question, does the easement expressly authorize construction equipment, drainage, concrete trucks, utility installation, and future maintenance access? Will this be in perpetuity?
Yeah, are you the property owner under that easement at all, or is it just,
I'm a member of the maximum question the city's for.
and you want to know whether or not the easement is sufficient for us to do this?
I want to know if you're going to continue using the easement.
Oh, well, in terms of how much use will be on the post-construction. Maybe once a month, a tech might go to the site. So it's very rarely traffic in terms of traffic, there's virtually no traffic increase to the site, is that the question?
Yes. Have you marked it socially?
Excuse me, we need to go one at a time, so, Dennis, did you have more questions?
Yes.
Okay,
You know,
okay. Well, if you could hit the big ones, just so we can spread it out, if we have more time, we can get to the other.
I also have documentation property manager, residential and commercial construction. So as I said, the site is 1 acre, working plan for the stage of training and all construction vehicles during the process.
Yeah, you can provide all that to the project manager, provide all that to the town, their satisfaction.
I asked the board to.
If the board asks you.
I asked the board to include that criteria where they see this application as complete. As well as the anticipated construction schedule. We have an idea of how long construction does be.
Yeah, once it gets on the schedule, right, because it depends on who's ahead of it. It goes up very quickly, I mean, the actual, once the site work is done. 60 days, maybe 30 days. The whole itself goes up in a matter of days, it's 0%, goes up very quick. It's just a short construction cycle, what would you say, 60 days from the day they start? So it doesn't take long.
My questions go on, but I'll try to summarize them and I'll apply them to the board and hopefully they will be answered fully.
We can come back to you too, I just wanna spread it around a little bit, make sure that it's a chance.
Okay,
So we'll come back to you if there's more time.
for a lot of my questions have to do with the construction of the structure, which is not supplied. For instance, if you bring up back picture of the monopole, it shows no guide wires. So how is it supposed to be supported?
It's all, believe me, that's all, we've got PEs up one side and down the other. None of them are done with, monopoles are not done with guide wire, professional engineers. They're all, monopoles don't have guide wires, and all of that has to follow state and federal regulations. So we have no problem supplying that to the towns. Engineer, you probably have third party engineer, all that can be done.
I'm
No problem.
asking if you're drilling or if we're going to be blasting because there's ledge on that property.
I don't know the answer to that without checking with, it's another department, I can check with them. I'll ask that question, we'll provide that information.
So a lot, my questions have to do with the necessary of ledge and blasting through ledge because that has an adverse effect on the well. So my question to you was, are you going to be performing studies on the wells, surrounding wells and the effects before the consumption during that.
We comply with all laws, rules, and regulations, whatever those are, whatever site, we comply with those.
So I kind of came here to learn more about how you're actually going to construct the.
You won't get that tonight. I'm not a civil engineer. We don't have a civil engineer, but we can get a civil engineer.
Like our engineer.
You don't have a civil engineer. All that is with the civil engineer. And usually that happens at the building permit stage, but if the town tells us they'd like it earlier, we'll get it to earlier. It's very rare that at this stage we hear those kinds of questions, but we're happy to provide it to the town if they ask.
Lastly, on your application, you did not provide an estimate of the cost of the project. Why was that?
If the town wants that,
It's on the permit, you didn't.
that we will supply that. And usually the building permit stage, part of that too is because until the site is selected and it's approved, we may not know what it's gonna cost. And until we've done the geotech as well, which is what you.
I'm asking, when will you have these answers before the application is even complete? It seems like there's a lot of answers left.
If the town asks us for that information and it's reasonable and legitimate, we'll provide it. For completion stage, to deem it complete, which doesn't mean won't continue to supply information. To deem an application complete, we just have to have everything that's required in the ordinance to deem it complete.
Well. Ms. Bergeron, I am familiar with the ordinance and studied it for last 4 years, the number. I'm not speaking as number, but a lot of these things are.
If they're missing, then that's the point of the completion meeting, to find out if something's missing under the ordinance. We'll supply it.
What I'm thinking is that I'm really relying on the board to come at me for answers, because I'm not getting information.
Okay, save the comments, question.
I'm sorry, so is, first it was my understanding, that maybe it's incorrect, you thought the tower would be under 200 feet, that's what you want to keep it at?
I keep the tower under 200 feet in order to avoid FAA lighting.
Okay. And right now, is your plan to have it under 200 feet
Yeah.
at that site?
If you saw it's 130,
Okay, so, and when you say it won't be lit, I mean, the tower itself, when there's a light on top of it.
correct, there will be no FAA lighting.
What about the lighting around, the surrounding, is that gonna be all lit up?
No, it won't be lit up, there will be. No, in the compound, if there was an emergency and a technician had to go there at night,
Wait for lights,
then they would have a light at the cabinet, and when they're done, it goes off.
but it will be dark,
It will be dark, this will be invisible at night.
and you said something about a little building.
They'll put a
Next to
cabinet.
it, and so how big the pad, you mentioned this pad, how big is the pad? And how big is the little building?
It's not a building, it's actually an equipment cabinet,
Whatever.
it's size of a freezer, it just depends, but depends on what area it is, but. The generator, like you have any home gym, same size.
And the pad? Or the-
We have to scale it off of the, we have to.
Well, I'm assuming it's gonna be a big concrete square thing.
Yeah, there's. Concrete square, but it's the leased area, the area that's within the fence is not particularly large. Sometimes 100 by 100, sometimes 50 by 100, this one is
There's a 40 by 40.
40 by 40. So, I mean, it's 160 square feet.
I'm just trying to get a sense of the area. So you also mentioned like aesthetically, you don't think it's gonna be an issue. So there's no house, like, once you get this, goes to you, and you get all built and get your little refrigerator building. You don't believe that any neighbors actually, I don't know the area.
I see it down in front of me. I see the antenna and the light on.
All right, hold on, we're getting beyond questions.
Well, I thought you said, no, you're not gonna look at it, is that?
This is a heavily wooded, I encourage you to drive by the site, it is heavily wooded.
If you'd like to take a field trip,
Hold on.
walk to 1256 and look at the antenna and on my front.
All right, hold on, please.
And I'm talking about our tower, I'm not talking about the existing one. Can't go into about the existing one. Yes,
And if
On the top of it.
this one is gonna remain?
yeah, we got nothing to do with it.
Oh, what is that?
It stands for main utilities.
They have like a capture Squirrel Island, checks, you know, over Squirrel Island, big internet, Squirrel Island, these kind of things.
Huh, okay. And how tall are
That's like 300 feet. I forgot.
they?
Yeah, it's all of it.
A little red one is for my house. Is that a little red thing on top?
Yeah, that's not ours.
I can see it from my house. I don't know.
And again, that's why we showed scale, we showed 295 foot and how much lower this one would be. And in the end, the question that we're driving at here is not. But there's gonna be a power, we have to provide service, we have a right to provide service. The question is where, what is the best alternative for this community?
So my next question was about this aesthetic. Sorry, he's saying you can't see it, but my question is, what is, like, I assume you're gonna look up and see. If, cause we don't have 35 trees.
No, but you're in a 135 foot tree, depending on perspective. Now, and that just means that you're not gonna be able to see some antenna from someplace peeking above the trees, because again, this
You're
is.
not gonna see the fencing.
No,
He
that's all.
won't see the fencing,
No.
and he won't see the little box.
No, I encourage people to drive the site.
Everybody can see it right on Main Street, south down.
You're saying the next one, you won't see it.
Yeah, when you're,
If they can't see it, you would do some mitigation.
there is no other mitigation we can do. Here's the mitigation. The mitigation is we're only 130 feet, which is short for these towers. The other mitigation is we are next to an existing tower. So if you see this, you're already looking at a much taller tower that's lit. The other mitigation is it's under 200 feet, 130. So we don't need to light it or strike it. The other mitigation is we can put it in the middle of a densely forested area. So it is difficult to see. Is there some angle where somebody might be able to sit on top of this? Yes, there may well be, but remember, it's line of sight. If that antenna can't see the phone and the phone can't see the antenna, in effect, it doesn't work.
So I have a technical question about Verizon and their 5G. Like, when I drive that, my phone, I don't ever get 5G anywhere. I have the Verizon, I don't even know 5G existence, they may still get portable here. My dad's in order for me.
Yeah, everybody wants 5G. I don't know where it's rolled out in this
I'm
area.
just talking a decent signal.
Okay.
The tower over by State's Main, is that one of your towers? That big huge thing? That must be a cell tower.
It's the cell tower.
I don't know if that's already not.
It's a big one, but
It's not part of the honeycomb?
Okay, hold
I don't
on,
know what your honeycomb.
hold on, we're getting far afield. Thank you,
Make sure, build one that actually works.
thank you for your questions. Thank you for your questions.
You don't want to have to.
All right. Save the comments. We need to get questions, okay? And let me just add a footnote real quickly. We're going to have a site visit scheduled probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So everybody will have an opportunity to go out there. They might even have a mock-up of the box that they're talking about. So hold on to the site visit. Part of it, we'll do that in an organized fashion, although anybody's welcome for it. Let me take you first and then.
Question for Laura. And the attorney, so you guys do not know if you own the Taste of Maine cell tower that everybody sees on Route 1?
Off the top of my head, without looking at the maps, I don't personally know. No, we have there's a lot of other carriers out there too. We may or may not.
I'm just asking, because there's 3 professionals here. Is it?
No, I can, we have data to show you to, I believe, answer that question for you. If you look at the map here, that shows you the location of the proposed site. And it also shows, I know, but
I'm asking if that's part of the.
I'm
What
gonna,
is Taste of Maine?
I'm gonna answer your question. Yeah. I'm answering your question. If
Hold on, please.
if you allow me to answer the question.
Let's respect the process, please. Everybody gets a chance. If you interrupt other people, they don't get a chance. Everybody listened and nobody interrupted you, okay? Please.
I presume that by asking, does this site have a has Verizon infrastructure, the site you're referring to, is because you're wondering if it provides some level of service to this area. What provides some level of service to this area today are the sites that are listed here. Okay, these are the names of the sites that are listed here. And you can see by their color you can see where the color is at on the map. You can have an idea if the site you're referring to happens to be within this legend and that color happens to fall within this area, then it does provide some level of service. But again, to stress the point that Robert made, you see all that whiteness and all that broken up colors on your island, that means that you do not have reliable service. That means that very often you try to connect, but you're not able to connect, although you may see 3 bars, but they don't work for you because you have limited
But you're telling me
service that is not reliable.
But you're telling that, but I have a license. I live at 1256. I have service. I'm on the emergency response department here in Meyer, and I have service on the island. You're telling me what I don't know.
Well,
But that's fine.
I'm not, sir, with all due respect, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you what engineering, looking at the engineering and at the level of service that you have in the island, your service is not reliable. You may be able to make a phone call, but if you try to stream data, it's very difficult. If you may be able to make a phone call, but sometimes you're not able to connect to make that phone call, and you have to try multiple times to do that.
I'm not finished.
Hold on,
He wasn't done.
I'm not finished.
okay, everybody relax, everybody's gonna get a chance, okay? Go ahead, you had a couple more.
So the antenna you propose there
Yeah,
in the site.
yes,
Across the street from my house.
Yes.
The coverage you're saying is for the island, but on the next slide. There's no coverage for the.
Robert, I'm gonna just wiggle here a little bit.
Yeah, jump to the next one.
Okay, all right. So,
On the side.
so,
No.
that, to answer your question, I need to give you context. I need to give everybody context. If you give me that, a minute or two to do that, okay? So what you're looking at here is coverage as it exists today. And you can see the location of the proposed site. Green is reliable coverage. And I'm gonna go further to say that in the areas that are green, you have in-building coverage. It means that you can make a phone call with your phone from inside your house. Not everybody can do that. I can assure you, I'm aware of that. Yellow, so green is excellent. Yellow is good. Both green and yellow are reliable. Gray is not reliable. White is relatively speaking, the absence of service. Okay, so gray and white are not good. Green or yellow are good. So you can see your island has some gray in it because you can make, there's some level of coverage in the island, but it's not a reliable coverage. Not to meet the guidelines provided by the FCC to what coverage is like and expected to. So you have a significant gap in coverage that is not reliable, okay? And in the level of coverage that you have today, you have a significant gap in performance as well, all right? So that's what things will look like today. I'm gonna show you the same type of map. I'm gonna move to the next slide. Okay. This slide here shows you what things are gonna be like with the proposed site working. You can see that this entire area, the island, for the most part, now has green coverage, which is excellent coverage, which is in-building coverage as well. And you can also see how the yellow extends away from the green. So green, yellow, excellent and good.
And then the white.
Green meaning in-building coverage as well. And the white means that your coverage is not reliable and perhaps non-existent.
So the southern end of Westport is still.
This may need to be covered by another cell. Remember we're talking about they can jump over. There may be another cell here. I don't know what's planned.
Yeah. Now, that's it. So, you know, when working with RF and phones, like the one you're holding, when you're checking service, So a statistical,
Coverage. Right. Yeah.
okay, whether or not you're able to prevent statistical in nature, the RF varies as a function of moving objects, as a function of the wind blowing through the trees and the trees moving around and what have you. There's a standard deviation associated with the signal that you receive, and that standard deviation, they work from 7 to 10 dB.
No, I-
From the signal, the dB is a measure of signal strength, right? And you can see it on the ledge.
Right, so.
Excuse me, better if you stood back so everybody could hear you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well,
Well, the speaker can pick it up too.
I get it with green,
Thanks.
but then for emergency services and what you're saying, there's still a considerable amount of white and gray. Where we would need, actually need for.
When you-
Coverage. But not below. So I'm just, and then still, the northern end of the island is still white and gray.
Yeah, so-
So I look at this permanent structure to me. It's kind of permanent. And then like, what do we kind of get out of this? It's not guaranteeing the whole island.
But you can't cover that part, remember we talked before, it's incredibly weak signal. Only goes so far, and that phone's gotta be able to talk back to it. So even if we raise this thing 250, 300 feet. Increase the power level, we're allowed to, but increase it and cover the whole island. It's useless for the phones because they can't talk back. You're gonna see a series of relatively small, it'd be great if we could cover the entire island with one cell. But it's not gonna happen. It's some of that's gonna have to be hopefully covered by surrounding cells. As I said before, these are incredibly complicated areas.
All right, next question, sir, back.
Well, I think we answered it.
Okay,
Fine, thank you.
all right, Jason, what's your
I
problem?
was just gonna make a point, but it's basically people keep on talking about that tower because everyone drives by it. It's a big open parking lot and some big monopole that might go over the tenders. It's a slightly bigger enclosure than what we are proposing, but everyone drives by and sees it, so. It's kind of the same thing, except for it's in the parking lot and it's still.
All right, let's see if we have other questions and I'll come back to you. Other questions? Yes.
You mentioned a repeater limit. That's gonna be involved in front of the fire department. Does that mean everything from the cell tower to the fire department is gonna be covered too, or is that like?
Jason, talk about that.
The radius would be-
Yeah, we're not aware of their coverage, only if they said this at home, so I have to defer to them.
My question was, what is the repeater?
That's, you would have to answer that.
Basically, right now, we have a repeater at the fire station. It goes pretty far north, and actually it goes into Wisconsin and it works pretty well there, but. It's about 60 feet high because we can't go any higher on the tower at the fire station due to how close we are. The airport, we can't get FAA won't let us have a taller tower there. So the southern part of the island, there's ledge, so between here, our tower and where the proposed site. There's about 70 feet of ledge, and ours again is line of sight too, so. We don't have very good radio coverage on the south part of the island, so if they're proposing to let us put a repeater there, then we're looking to link back to the repeater to the fire station. That would give us some coverage. It also provides, there's a lot of spots where, I've been trying to talk to chief or other people on their cells. During storms and whatnot, and we just don't have cell coverage to talk to people.
And their two-way coverage may look, I have no idea, may look very different than this map. Would you cover the entire island with, it's a whole different system.
It's a whole different system, it's
UHF, VHF?
yeah, it's a VHF.
VHF, yeah, so it's a shorter, it's a longer wavelength, so it's a lot more propagation from it.
Yeah, so that might solve your problem, even though we've got some issues with that.
I think it'll.
All right, got a new question in the back, go ahead.
I'm curious why the proposal doesn't address the aesthetics if for some reason somebody decided you could have a whole bunch of free and all of a sudden towers was more visible. A lot of states are doing towers that look like green marine blended. Where they are visual.
Yeah, here's, we have this. So you're talking about what we call stealth technology, basically. And I've been involved in some of those. First of all, it's not necessary here because of the amount of trees you've got. They look good at about 80 feet. 90 feet, you start to get taller because you've got so much weight loading on the ends. And this gas can be thicker. Reduces your ability to put other providers on there. That's another thing we want to do is be able to have fewer towers. And so between the weight loading, if they start to look like, I'm just gonna tell you what phrases in inverted toilet. You had people say, when you start to get over 70, 80, 90 feet, they look bad. And it's just, that's just weighted. Now, there is room for stealth in the right applications. This isn't it. There's also room for stealth. We do stealth wherever we can. We replace church steeples with our transparent materials, put them inside that. We've got a cross, on church where the antennas are, in the arms. So if we can do stealth, we'll do stealth, but this is not a good application.
But if this is only a 1 acre piece of land, that's helping you ensure that the land around it, that we will change and do something there.
We don't need to cut any trees other than just that area. So that's what the landowner.
But it's a 1 acre parcel, and there's no sort of big and no.
No, we don't have control over it. That's up to the landlord. Which we could talk about if that became an issue moving forward.
I'll come back to you. Your question.
Question, you said the aesthetics, I don't want to watch any way of that, I look at traffic, tourist traffic, but, the chief talked about, I'm familiar with that actually, Frank actually owns some of those towers somewhere else in the country. How much more expensive is that? Because he told me they have a lot more sense, and that's why people tend to deter them. Because not just the aesthetics, it's just price, is it much more expensive?
They are more expensive, but Verizon's done a number of those. They will do that in the right application, but we have people who have said, we wish we had done that. There's one of the Adirondacks called the Frankenpine. There's one on Bainbridge, New York, again, they call them the inverted toilet bush. You've got one town of Pittsburgh that they've asked to go back to a regular tower. Another time thing where they asked us to stealth it by painting it blue. Match the skies and put white clouds on it. So it's a bad idea, but we'll do it if you want. They asked us to then replace it with steel gray. So look, we'll explore that, but in the end, have done a lot of these. I don't think it's what the town's calling.
I'm sorry, I just had a beach house built next to one of those towers that we proposed. They're not very pretty. I wish we had used the stealth instead. I would have done with that instead.
Do you have a clear view of that tower?
I'm so sorry.
Do you have a clear view of that
I
model?
have a clear view, but.
And that's a monopole?
It's
Is it a monopole or a tower or what?
it's a monopole.
Okay, but you've got a clear view of it, and sometimes we have to do that. These have to be where they have to be in order to provide a service. Sometimes they're out in the open. Sometimes we get lucky, and we can put them next to an existing tower. Sometimes we get lucky, and we can put them into dense forested areas like this. And sometimes we get lucky, we can keep them 100, 200 feet. So those are all wins for us. But we can't make them completely disappear because they've got to be able to see the falls and the falls factors.
I have another question, sorry. Your county that you propose, is it just for you guys, or are you gonna subcontract to 2 other companies? Because my friend told me, usually when they have 1 tower built, they subcontract to 2 other companies like Verizon, AT&T, and whatever else.
This one is for Verizon, but it will be made available for other providers, and that's what towns want. They want co-location. So if this works, and there's only really 2 other providers, AT&T and T-Mobile these days, with all the consolidations. If one of those other carriers come to town, and this works for them and their network, they can go on our town. If we don't keep them off, they don't keep us off theirs. We get free co-location back and forth.
The town can only support 3 providers, correct? Because that's what I was told.
Yeah, and that's typically, well, it depends on the array, it's all of a function of math and weight loading. But typical arrays, it will handle 3 typical cellular wireless arrays.
Thank you for your question. Back to you.
I just have
Oh.
a quick question for you,
Okay.
Chair, I'm on the agenda, I just wanna make sure we don't run out of time for me.
We will not run out of
Okay.
time. Will not run out of time. Did you have any
Yeah.
questions?
I'm not tech savvy, but. I'm just asking you. Does self-service have anything to do with AI? Data centers?
No, nothing
There's
whatsoever.
no connection?
No connection whatsoever.
Coverage looks really strong where the proposed data center is coming like this, yes.
Well, I have no idea.
No, I.
So this is fulfilling the fact that you have a significant gap in coverage. Basically, and that's what Robert has addressed. That's all. It has nothing to do with the
How does it work with being inside? I don't understand that part. With interior-
in building coverage, as
Yeah.
that I mentioned on the green. Well, so RF, as the attorney mentioned, decays when it goes through say, bushes and trees and what have you, the leaves. There's a loss of energy of that RF. If the trees were not there, the RF received would be stronger signal, right? But there are trees. So we use a propagation modeling program that measures or predicts the signal strength as a function of distance and as a function of the clutter that lies between the antenna and the receiving phone. And there is what we call pass-through clutter. So as the RF goes through the amount of vegetation, there's a loss associated with it. And that loss, we predict it, and we are able to then say you have this much signal strength at this location embedded within the trees. So to the house has a loss associated with the walls and the roof and the insulation and things of that nature. That loss can be anywhere from 15 to 20 dBs. So the reason the green is in building is because the green goes, that legend tells you the green goes to -85 dBm. A dBm is a measure of signal strength. So the reason it's in building is because you can be in your house. If you were just outside the house, you say received -80 dBm, pretty strong. If you go in at -80, you have a loss of 15, 20 dBs, you're still at -100 dBm, you're still able to receive that signal strength in your house.
If you live really close to it, does that always emitting RF?
Yes,
So then, so whoever's sleeping under that would be receiving.
is perfectly safe. In fact, one of the items that is submitted eventually. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That's it, I just want to be. Go ahead.
You may what?
Okay, it's okay, we're breaking down here, let's move on. I'm gonna take a couple more questions from people who haven't asked any questions. Already. And then I'll take a couple more questions, but then we want to give Becky an opportunity to make a presentation. All right, new question, Dick, go ahead.
Yeah, when we had that site review, there'll be a structural engineer.
We could bring a structural engineer for that.
So he can answer some of the questions.
Yeah. Yeah, even better, if we have those questions ahead of time, he can work up stuff in writing as well.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, if anyone wants to submit questions to the applicant, send them to us, we'll get them there and we'll post them online so everybody's on the same page.
We send questions to the planning board?
Yeah, we've got a website. We're gonna put it on the website. We wanna make sure everybody sees everything at the same time. We don't want individual conversations going on, because nobody will hear the answer, right? Okay, yes, sir.
I like that, it's a two-part question, quick, hopefully, probably a quick answer. I'm a butter, okay, is next to it. So, the part of that is, if you get approved, if you build a lot of et cetera. And decide you want to do something else there, you want to go taller, if what you have isn't tall enough, would it be a whole new process starting over again? And then the second part is, right next to it, you know, right. One-story building, am I gonna have any benefit, am I gonna get that signal, or gonna go right over my house? Maybe that's good, if it doesn't, no, but just wondering.
Yeah, as to the first question, you're limited to precisely what is approved by this board and with the conditions that they impose. So anything else, if we ever had a need to come back, and although we would, you have a new process. I think that answers that question. I'll defer to the other, how close you have to be to the tower so that you're not getting any benefit of service. They have to be awfully close to the thing.
Oh, this is what came up the first meeting, I believe, that they were calling umbrella.
Yeah, about home site.
Yeah, so, no, so, it's, there is right at the bottom of the tower, an area where the signal strength is very weak, but there's still signal strength. There's no such a thing in today's networks as having no coverage directly below the tower. I can look at the antenna and I can look at my phone and I have some level of coverage, but it's very weak. And that's due to the antenna pattern of the actual antenna that's being used. And that area is about, I don't know, anywhere from 20 to 30, 40, 50 feet.
Yeah.
Beyond that, the signal strength basically is a normal signal strength throughout the coverage area or footprint of that site.
Okay, before I come back to you, any other new questions? Yes, ma'am. Anything?
I'm a little late to the game here, so I'm just trying to understand why Westport Island is the choice for Verizon when I don't see cell towers, like, did you talk to the other kind of? Are they?
You see, there are other,
I did see-
here's a site, here's a site, here's a site, we just did one up here in this passage, just off here, here's the site.
Okay.
So they're all over.
And the coverage maps that you're showing, those are all, this is Verizon coverage of this area,
Just-
or this is every?
Just Verizon.
Okay, so do you have a map that shows all the coverage?
No, we would not get involved with that.
But that's a kind of, I feel like that's important for us to understand, because if we're looking for this honeycomb effect, then that's going to, and if you can bundle several carriers on the same towers, then why would it be as a town look at that?
That's got nothing to do with us, and in fact, the Telecom Act specifically said this is 1996. That's passed the Telecom Act, which basically controls everything we've done for the last 27 years. 30 years. And it says that basically, even if you had perfect coverage from T-Mobile, they got there first, they blanketed the area. You can't discriminate against the other providers, in this case, there's really only two others these days, so it's the conclusion and system. Now, hopefully, if and when they get here eventually, they would be able to go on our tower, but I can't speak to that, it's something that we can design or.
All right, one more question, then we're gonna turn it over to Becky. Yes, one more question.
You mentioned some, yes, there about, other people using energy was mentioned, so. Do you, when somebody else was going to the tower, does it change structurally something on top of the tower?
Now, what they would do is we got the top, it's 130 foot tower.
Yeah.
Our antenna center line is 125. Okay, so the antennas, then you have two under there.
Or a little thing would be added to on the outside?
So yeah, there's a little, and we can note that, show you what it looks like, it basically, it's just more of the same.
Well, so they're usually separated by 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we even shown potential of two more, should they come. That's ours, that's Verizon, and this could be the other two, should they eventually come someday, because again, we always build, as do they. So that we can co-locate as best we can. Before, I just want, I don't want anybody, it's few folks have mentioned or alluded to health. And I think the gentleman here said that he's worried about that, and I just want to touch on that. Even though it's preempted, even though it's not, cannot be part of the discussion, I hate leaving that. I don't want people to be concerned about something when there's no basis for it. And what has always made the most sense to me from the RF engineers is this is a radio sync. They've been around for over 100 years. The only difference between this and your radio, your television, two-way, which nobody seems to have a problem with, but they're concerned about these. The only difference is this is incredibly weak radio signal. It can't go very far for the reasons we discussed about before. And because you have to have a phone talking back, that you compare the power density from the tower compared to the phone, you'd be surprised. And Jason knows more about this than anybody from the video ago. But it's just not an issue. And if anybody's truly concerned with that, even though it's preempted, please talk to me, we'll get you the information, I don't want people to be concerned about that, because it really is a non-issue.
All right, thank you very much for your questions. Just to highlight, this is just the first meeting. We're going to have a formal public hearing, before any decisions are made. And we can schedule another, one of these sessions if there's interest. So, so please, this is just again, Becky, as a party, please make your presentation. Yeah.
Robert, do you want me to do so I don't have any questions on, this is more directed, no, everyone can hear me? Yeah. Okay. This is more directed to my community and to the planning board directly. Many of you know me, I'm Becky the tenant, my family lives at 1256 Main Road. And 1257 Main Road. We are nearby affected property owners and abutters to the applicant. And I want to begin by saying clearly that we're not opposed to improve cell service or public safety communications here on West Fork Island. We understand why reliable communication matters, especially for emergency services. My husband, my son-in-law, as well as many close friends serve as first responders for the West Fork Volunteer Fire Department, as well as my husband serving on the Lincoln County EMA. At the last meeting, when I raised concerns about the foundation details, ledge conditions, construction methods, wells, groundwater protection, Chair Henderson indicated that those were the kinds of completeness questions that the board was looking for in advance of this study session. That is why I am submitting and raising these issues tonight, not to burden the applicant and not to oppose improved services, but to help identify what site-specific information may still be needed before completeness is determined. This application is location-specific. So the question tonight is not whether Verizon has built towers elsewhere or whether telecommunication services are useful. The question is whether this particular proposed site at 24 Post Office Road has been supported with enough site-specific information for the board to determine that the application is complete under the town's ordinances. In my view, the applicant is not complete yet. It appears to rely on several important areas on general statements, future information, waiver requests, or typical details that are not specific enough to this specific location. Before the board determines completeness, I respectfully ask that Verizon, Tarpon, that's how you pronounce it, provide written site-specific documentation on legal access, right-of-way authority, construction traffic, road capacity, foundation, geotechnical conditions, ledge conditions, possible drilling, rock hammering or blasting, nearby private wells, groundwater protection, drainage and stormwater, environmental impacts, RF documentation for nearby homes and businesses, visual impacts, decommissioning, financial assurance for our town, insurance and liability, and future carriers. I am not attempting to provide engineering, legal, or site design solutions for the applicant. I am not asking the neighbors to do Verizon's homework. My purpose is to identify areas where, as an abutter or nearby property owner, the application appears to need more site-specific information. The burden should remain on the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the town's ordinances and to provide the necessary technical support. I also respectfully ask that any verbal statements made tonight be followed by written responses in the public record for the board before the board votes on completeness. That way the board, abutters, and residents can review the same information and understand exactly what the applicant is relying on. Finally, If discussions continue about possible alternative sites, I respectfully ask that those discussions remain separate from the completeness review of this current application. If the applicant pursues another location that would require its own application and public review, alternative site discussions should not be used to cure or overlook missing information to the current 1224 Post Office Road application. Thank you for letting me speak. And I do have a comment, a question that I didn't get to ask Verizon. I understand that the 1996 Telecommunications Act still limits what local boards consider regarding RF emissions in a facility. In a facility complies with the FCC standards, but in 2021, the DC Circuit remanded the FCC's decision to keep relying on its 1996 RF exposure limits because the FCC had not adequately addressed evidence and comments about long-term exposure, 5G, children, environmental harm, and effects below existing limits. So I'm asking the applicant provide a current written RF compliance explanation that addresses the 2021 remand and not simply relies on generic statement that the facility complies with 1996 era FCC limits. Thank you.
Okay, before you leave, yep. Any questions for Becky?
Can we get a copy of her statement?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, kind of broad strokes. Verizon attorney said that they were looking at like the water and the preserves and stuff like that, like, right? But never spoke about the pond and the stream that's on the buddy property that feeds our spring fed pond.
That's not a question to me.
Yeah. Any questions for
Yeah.
Becky?
You know.
Anybody? Okay, real quick, just because you were addressing the board, let me make perfectly clear. There is absolutely no quid pro quo regarding alternative sites and completeness. Completeness is going to happen one way or the other. The only question is what site are we going to be focusing on? So if there's interest, and I don't know if there's interest in the community or not, but if there's interest in the community to trying to find an alternative site, then we want to spend our time talking about completeness as to that site, because that's the one that, you know, folks are interested in.
Correct, and that's
So-
what I'm asking is that
Absolutely.
that we're focusing on 24 Post Office Road and that we stay focused on 24 Post Office Road and the completeness of that application.
That's our job, that's our job, but if there's interest in the community, and that's why, one of the reasons we have a public meeting, if there's interest in the community, answering Ms. Hamilton's question, can we find another place? We want to give that exercise time to complete itself before everybody spends a lot of time making a decision about a site. We don't want to spend all of the time working on a application for a site that ends up getting changed, you know, down the road. So that's the only reason for the staggering decision. But the completeness is going to be done one way or the other. We're going to look at all the information that you provided and following up on Mary Ellen's point. If you could give us all of those, give us that checklist that you gave, you know, that'll be very helpful.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, okay, we're at a point, over the questions, we're at a point for public comment. And you can go first, public comment.
Not a comment. So if you're exercising, searching for an alternate site.
I'm not. If the town wants to, this is the opportunity to do that. We're not taking that. Verizon did their thing, they looked for one. I don't think they're gonna be beating on anybody's doors. But if there's interest within the community, if for a couple folks here who want to take the time and say, hey, let's look and see if there's another alternative to work better, then we can slow the process down a little bit to make that happen. And I've talked to Verizon, Verizon's said it in public meetings. They said, listen, if there's a good faith effort to find another spot, we're in no hurry. We want to get it right the first time, right? So we're not initiating that. But if there's interest in the community, that's the opportunity. And you don't have to decide tonight, right? There's no pressure, but within the next week or so, if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, we've got a group of people together who are looking at other sites, how much time do we have? And I'll say, how much time do you want? And we'll work it from there, okay? So we're not looking for another site, and I don't think Verizon is, they did everything they said they did to look for a site. But if there's interest in the community, we want to give that an opportunity to happen, okay? If there isn't any interest in the community, we decide to complete this in a couple of weeks. Yes, ma'am.
So regarding the other study, we have a question. One from Verizon, when they did their study, they found this to be their optimal study. Were there other sites that they thought were viable? And was this site, why was this site, is this site up for sale? Did they just rent it from the person that owns it?
I'm guessing because there's a tower there already. But I'll let them answer the question.
Sure, we did approach a number of, good people for the search area, okay? We approached a number of, again, we had this gross search area. Then we set a site at, start looking, right? And they start looking, they start finding sites, they look for co-location opportunity, failing that, they look to go next to an existing tower. They try to get some information back there, of engineer continues the testing. And then refines the search area. So we just hit that again. This was the original wide search area. All these pins, a bunch of pins that show different sites that were looked at, and they're all in the. Hopefully, people are reading this on the website. There's 10 different ones we approached, all on the website. And we ended up with this one. It was proposed not because it was for sale, but because it was an existing home. So this is the area. I mean, this is going to be the area with the best possible results. Anything outside of that, again, you're not going to want these small ones here. I think somebody mentioned, reason we're showing the wetlands area is not because we want to go in them. Somebody mentioned, we can't go. Nor can we go into these areas. So, hold on.
But our site is facing Willowbrook and they are releasing the right to the site from him. We are not lit.
So basically, this is, especially for something in this area, that's going to be the most productive. And you start getting out of there, there are issues, and you can see the areas that even if we found them here, we've got wetlands, we got land trust issue, we got other issues. So we have scrubbed this area well. I've seen thousands and thousands of these sites. This one is actually a good site from a land use, in our opinion. People disagree, we find a different one, we're willing to look up.
There's other comments. Yes. Guys decided.
Yeah, I just wanted to read what I wrote to the board.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And originally wrote it to the planning board. Rather than committee. I'm writing a both community member and property owner with approximately 1,000 feet of proposed telecommunication power for the Orphan's office road. This project is to leave my neck of the woods, thus my parents live next to me and across the street from them, and we're very tight with their neighbors. And Steve, we call it the heart of Westford Island because it's one of the oldest settlements to Westford Island, as noted in our comprehensive plan. And we all live under this clustered area, but the old part of the island, we all live on the main road, on this area. It's right from across from our Oakland Hall, Squire Martin, and our community church. I've shared my list of questions with several nearby neighbors. And I've asked whether they have any additional questions, also those additional questions that they may keep forward, along with questions that are already submitted. I have every confidence that the planning board will carefully evaluate the proposal of good standards and ordinances and site plan review process. I question the not to, and are not intended to replace board review of ordinance. Compliance or site plan standard, rather than focus primarily on public health and safety and the construction process. Long-term stewardship of the site, and some areas where I might do the application would benefit from additional information. It is my understanding as a planning board member. That we have the authority, where appropriate, to retain independent third-party experts. Such as hydrologists, structural engineers, appraisers, or other qualified professionals. At the applicant's expense. I believe the authority exists for situations exactly like this, where a significant piece of infrastructure has the potential to affect surrounding properties in the community for decades to come. Over the years, we as a planning board have carefully reviewed projects of every size within the site plan ordinance, from flower stands and home occupations to commercial development. While that level of review might sometimes seem extensive for smaller projects, I appreciate that the same standards and procedures are in place to protect our town when reviewing a project of this scale. I have prepared a list of questions attached to my email. They were not written to prolong the hearing, which I thought I would be able to ask and receive answers tonight, but I did not. They were not to burden the applicant, rather than convert detailed answers that I believe would both help the planning board and the public make well-informed decisions based on a complete record. Thank you for your time and interest.
Other public comment?
Yeah,
You don't have to.
how it's not affect
Public comment.
how does it affect our property taxes?
Or if not, it was just going to, private.
I don't know that anybody can answer that question right now, I don't.
We pay tax, we're not affected them.
It's, you pay taxes or just the landowner pay tax?
Really, the landlord is responsible for the taxes, but we indemnify them if we pay our lease, so we handle any tax increase on the property. Sometimes some municipalities will actually separate it, we'll get separate tax. I don't know which way it works here, but in either event, the sum of that is we pay.
I'm curious if any of the money, because I'm sure it's gonna be a lot of money, if any of it go back to the town.
They do take, you do collect taxes for different facilities such as the garage. And it does come back to the town. And that's, you know, part,
It's already done.
yeah,
We're actually gonna be adding to the taxes.
exactly.
So right now, the property's tax is assessed at $67,000. Do we know what the assessment of 5G tower is?
No.
That'll be the assessment side, right?
We hope there will be a lot.
Okay. That's kind
Hi, I'm Jeannie Ross, and I'm not going to waste the day with this, but why would your application is not my first question?
well, good question. The process is, there's a pre-application meeting here, which took place already, public meeting. Then the applicant files their formal application.
Has that been my,
It has been filed.
so maybe 5 days for ordinance?
Yeah, under the ordinance, we have 30 days to decide whether it's complete or not. Because we want to have some public meetings,
It's not, so you won't agree it.
let me finish. I'm trying to answer your question. Because we wanted to have public meetings and didn't want to be rushed. We worked out an agreement with the applicant to continue that date. So they're not holding us to making a decision in 30 days, which was already passed. Instead, what you're talking about, which we decided.
And system that. It's here for me, which is they have 30 days.
No, we have 30 days. The board has 30 days to decide whether. Part, I didn't hear. Part.
But I expect we should have put on the application. The application. Appropriate.
Well, they think they have. We haven't decided yet.
To his own test, he has not.
There are a lot of questions. That's why we have public gathering. Okay? We're getting a lot of information. So the time period right now that we have in place are, right now, we will make a decision on August 12th at our next meeting. as to whether or not the application is complete. If we decide to have more, another public session and we want to continue that out so that we can get more information on the table. If there's another site that comes up that people want to look at, then there'll be a new application, a new time period. So we're just at the beginning, we're trying to assess whether there's enough interest in the community to look at a different site. If there isn't, then on August 12th, we'll make a decision.
You're saying it's happening in your ways, like what you say, it's after the West Part. There more appropriate land and it's passive.
If you want to provide, and I'm not here to advocate one for what I've heard from the applicant. There's a circle on the map, which is right there. That's the service area that they will be providing.
That's the thing.
That they want.
They want me.
Yeah, and what they're saying is that there's no service there now. So, they're in the business of providing a service. There's a need based upon the studies and the maps. I don't, use the phone down there very often. I don't know if residents down there, but the bottom line is they have a right to make an application. They've made an application, we have to decide that. Well,
And my next question is, how much are you paying the landlord?
how much what?
How much are you paying the homeowner, the landlord?
That's after the following consumption, we're going to do that, yes.
I asked that because I own 5 homes in Lincoln County. And I'd like to keep this off my island.
Right,
Let's talk about another location.
any other comments? And we appreciate that. We need to hear them. Any other comments? Well, hold on.
Try to be quick.
All
So,
right, go ahead.
I want to thank. Provides information that we received and gone through it. And I had a question on the facility, which is the adverse effects on historical mention.
Yes, okay.
So when they did their search, we found under the search, they said that there was no historical buildings within the 2-mile radius from that tower. And then they also approached the Maine Historic Preservation Commission. They also repeated that there are no historic preservation rooms within that 2-mile radius. So we're 1/4 mile from the tower. We're here as the greater way propagates. And I want to say that this building is registered on the National Register as a building next door to this church.
It doesn't surprise me, if the state of Maine made a mistake,
Yeah. Well,
then let's.
also,
Yeah.
person.
The state of Maine made a mistake.
Also did the search too, they wanted to double checks and went to Maine, so it's 2 search efforts. That both revealed that these 2 buildings.
Yes, Dick, I talked to the Maine Preservation Commission after you pointed that out to me, because I was worried, was there something we were supposed to do as a town to stay registered with them? It was their error. This is a registered National Historic Building, and they just like searched the wrong map. They were very apologetic, and they were gonna send you guys a new letter about it.
The last fact of it, so we know. Then what they do is they look and see, and you, does they have any effect? And you see that, well, yeah, it should be done. So in the end, we're gonna end up back where we are with no effect. Well, it's for different reasons, people can't see from there. As opposed to there is. So we'll end at the same place.
That's your main question is, how would that affect? Locations, all this.
In the end, it won't, because again, you can't see.
Absolutely.
All right, we're getting close to the end of the witching hour here, more public comment, go ahead.
I appreciate the enthusiasm from applicants for his point, but until we have one of those balloons, which is a third party professional service that we could ask them to supply to show us where will that tower be? With leaves on the trees, with no leaves on the trees, will we actually be able to see it from this building? Can we actually take those comments with any proof? We can't, I mean, I think it's just really be objective here. And I understand your job is to work for your client. You can't say things like that. when we haven't provided for. And we need that food as a town, and I hope, hopefully as a board, we do ask for that food.
And I think you were talking about experts earlier, and it sounds like what you're advocating, getting an expert to assess some of the applicants' proposals. So what would help us is that you have specific areas that you think an expert relevant, required, or would you give us that list? Okay, very good. Other public comment?
Has the applicant been in contact with any of the board members other than ones that they recused themselves? Verizon, has Verizon been in contact with any of the other board members?
We've had emails with the chair, and we've gone to like 40 people.
Oh, but none others, property owners interested in.
If you look at the application, you'll see that other property owners have been approached. It's in the application, the original application.
And I recall there was a page with a list of, I think, a dozen or so folks.
Other they come.
Yeah, and as I understand, what Verizon is telling us is that list is, these folks were, potential, a good place to look out. Yeah, and a bunch of them said, oh, thank you, and explanation, you know.
And I was on that list when I was working for this. Because they decided that she was trouble with this, all
Okay, all right, any other public comment?
I have a question, I know that April recused herself. She said that she was talking to Verizon, but I've heard that also, Jeff Hart was talking to Verizon. Is he staying on the board?
Only in the context of a meeting, one time I ever spoke with them was through the phone, in the course of the planning of the meeting. And
So
then
not about your property being.
no, they never got it.
Oh,
They never got it. And I also talked with Jason and Chief. Trying to serve as an intermediary so to make sure the fire department had an opportunity to talk to them. That's my only involvement.
Okay, I think we're,
Sorry, I was understanding what I heard, so. I just want to clarify on the word.
okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it does say that he was approved.
Okay, hold on.
I was never approached. We had me on the list to be considered. But there was never any, I found out about it when I saw that list. And you can see the reason why they said it's because the property within this house.
Okay, I think we made the record. Yes, ma'am.
Planning board on the final study. Or is it still living now?
Yeah, the other process is we decide, the next decision is the application complete? Once we make that decision, we have 30 days from then to have a public hearing, a formal public hearing. So that's where everybody gets a chance to ask questions and speak. 30 days after the public hearing, then we have to make a decision.
So, on the board, I guess, vote, like the town people vote it.
Yeah, and that's an ordinance issue. So under the ordinance, that's how it works. Those 30 days, schedule is in the ordinance, and we make the decision. Now, can somebody appeal from that decision? Yeah, there's an appeal process as well, the board of appeals and the select board. So I guess to answer your question, we're not necessarily the finance board. There's an appeal process. And of course, okay, thank you guys. This has been really robust. I think a good exchange of information. We need to talk about the next steps. The board's gonna gather here for just a minute, but what I'd ask the folks who are here, not on the board, is if there's interest in shopping for another site, now's the time to do that. We're going to start making decisions. We're going to be following the timelines. If there's no interest in another site, then we're just gonna move on with this application. If there is interest in another site, or at least exploring another site, contact me, my email is on the town website. And we can talk about scheduling, depending upon how robust that is. But at any rate, right now, the schedule is, we're going to leave on August 12th. Decide on completeness, unless there's interest in another site. August 12th is that deadline, is that date. August 19th, we had scheduled, as a potential another hearing. We'll talk about that, but if we don't have a public hearing, I think we will at least have a site visit. So keep that date August 19th in mind, watch the websites and the announcements, but those are the two next, potential dates coming up.
We may also take the 19th to respond to any completeness issues raised on the 12th.
Yeah.
Make sure that they meet for expansion, so.
Okay, any last minute comments about the schedule?
When and how is the process for us to give the information? Where, so that the ordinance is.
We have a person who is kind of challenging, this is Shannon, that, so, anything that anybody wants to send to us goes to one person, and then it goes on the website, and it goes to the other board members. And Dick is the conduit for that, so if.
So is there an email online or who this information?
It should
goes
just
to?
go to me.
Okay.
Just send your submission to me. I'll throw it up on the website. And this recording will be on the website.
Everybody's got April's email and she's acting in her capacity, for us all. Okay, thank you. All right. Anything else? Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you.